Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our live stream today. Today's topic is Cloud Security Q&A with John Hammond. And I am Peter Van Rysdam, your host, Director of Marketing here at Cloud Institute. And if you are not familiar with Cloud Institute, we are a training and coaching company that equips IT teams to confidently deliver on IT projects. We offer personalized coaching with cloud experts and hands-on project-based training to help you with those projects. And speaking of experts, I'm happy to introduce John Hammond, who will be presenting today. John, how you doing?
Hey there, Peter. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah,
good to
I'm
see
good.
you, my
Thank
friend.
you so much for joining us. And John is a seasoned expert in threat hunting, malware analysis, and penetration testing. He's also a passionate educator and content creator who shares his knowledge and skills through blogs, videos, and training courses. He's been involved in investigating and responding to some of the most notorious cyber attacks in recent history. So before I turn it over to John, just want to encourage you all to ask questions because that's really what this is about today. This is not kind of your normal presentation where we're showing some slides and then doing a Q&A. This is all about your questions. So we really want to hear what you have to say. This recording will be available here on the LinkedIn event page and on YouTube as well at the Cloud Institute's page afterwards. So we'll try to keep this to 30 minutes or so, but without further ado, let's go ahead and hit the ground running. So I guess, John, kind of first question is, what have you been working on recently? What's going on in your world that's keeping you up at night?
Oh, goodness. Hey, we're running all over the place trying to chase whatever ambulance we see fly by here. But no, we've been tracking the MOVEit's vulnerability that never seems to really die. I think that's been maybe over a month now, but there still seems to be some chatter. A couple other things between the Ivanti or Mobile Iron Core that we seem to see some storm brewing on that front. Let's see. There have been a little bit more of an uptick in some other ransomware incidents. Akira has kind of been on our radar for a little bit, and we're trying to see what we might be able to either, circumvent or break some of the chain for the Akira ransomware. I feel it's super disjointed, a little all over the place, but having a ton of fun, ramping up for Black Hat at DEF CON for a little family reunion for the security community.
Nice, awesome. You were telling me a little bit the other day about the MOVEit breach. What's the latest on that one?
Oh, goodness. Well, let me do a super quick crash course. So Memorial Day weekend, just about the very end of May, early start on July, MOVEit, software provided by this company and vendor called Progress, sort of a file transfer moving application that had a compromise, had a vulnerability, had SQL injection for the nerds and geeks that know, hey, kind of tricking the database to consider data as code, and then ultimately do what they might want to do as a threat actor and adversary. So that leveraged like an authentication bypass, that leveraged the database manipulation, and then ultimately remote code execution in this big chain that one of the other ransomware groups, I believe, CLOP, CL0P, and the sort of stylized name, had used to compromise a good handful of organizations with some big names. I think British Airways, Aer Lingus, BBC, other things that have kind of caught the headlines and news in the beat here. And that has trickled down into not just one vulnerability, but two, and then three, and I think now four. And CLOP, the threat actor, started to trickle out the compromised business data. Like, hey, the stolen information from all these victims, they didn't detonate ransomware. They didn't encrypt the devices, but they tried to steal and siphon and scoop up as much data that they could, and are now slowly bleeding that out onto what was the dark web, their sort of onion leak site they traditionally use. But I think even now they've tried to bring some stuff out to the clear web, like on the open internet. PwC was one of those victims. They just started to put stuff out that can be cached and indexed by like Google. So that was pretty wild. I think we've seen those get taken down now, though. The advantage of stuff on Tor is that that's not as easily attributed and kind of removed. On the clear web, that's easy, though. So I don't mean to be going down a rabbit hole and a tangent here, but it still seems to be a topic of conversation as we have more victims come out of the woodwork, and we're still kind of seeing the embers of the fire on that one.
Yeah, it's one of those we're always seeing additional fallout as time goes on, and hopefully it stops soon. So that would be good. And another one that's been in the news recently, we were chatting a little bit about this before we started the broadcast, was the was the news coming out with Azure and Storm 0558. But that sounds kind of like it's up in the air. We don't really know what's going on there still.
Yeah, so I'll be, hey, super honest, fall on my sword here. I'm not super sharp on all the details, but Microsoft and I think some of their security team folks were coming out to say, look, we're kind of investigating and digging into some sort of unauthorized access. I think they've attributed it to Storm 0658. I'm totally getting that number wrong. But it looked like there was some access that could eventually, and even I think other vendors, other community players and folks in the organization and industry have said, look, this could very well be more than what the story has been told as so far. It could just be access to any sort of Azure functionality. I think Wiz has gone out and published a blog on that, and it's sort of weird to see a little bit of back and forth because Microsoft says, hey, that's speculation, and some folks can't say with certainty. So it's really, really all over the place. And I don't think folks know exactly where that story is or where it's going. So I'm still sort of scratching my head, but keeping the ear to the ground. I don't know if folks are interested if you haven't heard that, but definitely go to dig into it. Microsoft and their Storm tracking there.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything yet for people to do because, as you said, it's kind of nebulous. But I did see one good thing that I was reading came out of it is that Microsoft is making, I think it was like 31 cloud security tools free now in the aftermath. So yeah, kind of opening up, which is great for the community.
That is the biggest thing. And if you don't mind, I'd love to riff on that for a little bit. So a lot of the audit and logging and sort of telemetry that comes with a lot of online cloud Azure capability and stuff that might be pretty well used in like any service provider or business or organization normally comes with a specific tier or like level of subscription when you buy and purchase some of that Microsoft tooling. That is a bit of a bummer because like you have to pay for more visibility and more info and intel that you can pull in the case of an incident or the big bad B word breach or an attack. So for incident responders, so for digital forensic analysts, so for folks on the blue team, the defenders, it really sucks. But now, hey, kind of in the wake of this, Microsoft has gone out and say, look, come September, we're going to give all of the log sources to everyone at any level. You don't have to pay to play for digital forensics and incident response. So great strides, and really happy from a community perspective on that.
Yeah, the logs, while they don't help you stop an attack, they help you identify an attack. So
absolutely.
Yeah, super important. And that's exciting that people are getting to that. Well, we did get a couple of questions that kind of came in, people sent in beforehand too. So I want to get to a couple of those. So let's go ahead and look at the first one here. Let's see. It says, we hear about the benefits of multi-cloud for redundancy, but does that leave us more vulnerable? Are there unified security solutions you're aware of that work across providers?
Ooh. So I'll try to articulate, hey, my thoughts, and I know maybe it could be a little bit sharp when we start to chat about some cloud stuff, right? Because when folks always ask, hey, what about the cloud? What about on-premise? What about just the infrastructure that we tend to use? What is the whole cloud? Is it safe to go put our stuff out on the open internet? Because it's just someone else's server, someone else's device, someone else's computer, yada, yada, yada. Ultimately, I feel like at the end of the day, it just relies on whether or not you can manage it or it can be managed. It doesn't have to be strictly you if you are able to, hey, maybe have some team, have some organization, have some keep their eyes on it. So whether or not it is multi-cloud, whether or not, hey, you're using different hosting providers, whether or not you're adding other segmentation, cool, perfect, great, as long as that can really still be something part of your purview. The thing I think that we kind of fall down to for a lot of the cloud conversation is that, hey, it's a new advancement in a lot of our technology and capability, but it hasn't exactly solved a lot of problems or different problems, not some incredible solution or silver bullet by any means. We just sort of spread out the problem and moved it into different places that still requires our attention and due diligence and security posture, right? I don't know. Am I barking up the wrong tree there, Peter? I don't want to be lighting any fires, ruffling any feathers here.
No, yeah. Controversy, is what gets people talking. So let's say some outlandish things today and get everybody up in arms. So I know one of the things that I've talked to you in the past about is CTFs and the importance that can play for people that maybe aren't in the industry yet and want to get some hands-on experience, because no one's just going to give you the keys, but if you can do something like that, you can show that, hey, I've used these tools before. For someone that's focused more on cloud security, is that still beneficial, or are there specific CTFs you're aware of that deal in that area more, or is it just kind of still beneficial to just get that general knowledge?
Totally. Oh man, that's a super good one to dive into. So hey, capture the flag, sort of gamified cybersecurity learning and kind of an activity and exercise to cut your teeth on a whole lot of stuff, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's just code and programming, whether it's binary exploitation, web security, mobile forensics, any host or network forensics, cryptography, blah blah blah. I think it's just one of the greatest ways to really get sharp on everything that we do in our industry. And when you're kind of taking that in direction specifically of cloud, look, AWS, massive. Google Cloud Platform, Azure, all the things we can chat about. A lot of the capture the flag competitions are built on that infrastructure because it has to be able to support thousands of players. So one really interesting perspective is if, hey, maybe you're knocking through a couple capture the flag competitions and then you're thinking, hey, I want to host my own. Like I want to have a part at the party here. I want to have a seat at the table. And then you might go learn and hey, get smart on Azure or Google Cloud Platform or AWS. But if you do want to be some more of that security tester and just go play and experiment, there are some really, really cool sort of exercises. One is called Flaws, FLAWS, kind of a gimmick and play fun off of AWS, Amazon Web Services. And there are tons and tons more. It's just a matter of, hey, going to Google and going to research and see what's out there to get smart and learn from.
Cool. And yeah, I was just looking that up because Aon was asking in the chat if we can share some of those links. So it looks like, is it flaws.cloud? Is that the one?
I believe so. Let me see if I can pull it up too.
Yeah, it looks like an old terminal green screen.
Yes, exactly that.
I love it. Cool. Yeah. So any other specific CTFs that you'd recommend, even if they're outside of cloud? Like what's kind of your go-to when you're bored and want to, I don't know if you still get bored and want to play CTFs or not.
Yeah. Oh man, it's super interesting. I feel awful about it. Like personally, it has faded away from me in my knee-jerk reaction, go spend free time to go tinker and play. Just because I feel like, hey man, I'm crammed and slammed with too much stuff as it is. But I have to admit, getting into the industry and starting to get sharp on all this stuff, I think it was monumental in kind of, hey, building up my own career, my own progress and growth. Capture Flag was all I could eat.
Yeah.
But now, yes, I am still tracking ctftime.org if folks are wanting to see what's an upcoming event or free exercise they can play with. And of course, there's Hack the Box and Try Hack Me and Pico CTF, tons and tons and tons of exercises to play with to get a little bit sharper.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of capture the flag, but that was in the woods with the Boy Scouts. So
yeah. Run away from bears, dude. I know it.
But I feel like that's prepared me for maybe like on-site penetration testing, sneak into places that I could.
I love it.
All right, we got a question here from Joshua watching on LinkedIn. He says, I'm just getting started in security space. What are some of the main considerations in regards to cloud security as opposed to on-prem? So I don't know if that applies to just, what things should I learn that are different, or, are there other things that you look out for when you're securing the cloud versus on-prem?
Oh, forgive me. I'm going to take this in a very generic and maybe borderline boring way. So I think especially with cloud environments, again, whatever hosting provider you're thinking up or however you're building your infrastructure, etc. The biggest differentiator and maybe similarity in some way is that when you're putting this all together, you need to be cognizant of all the tech and all the solutions and all the different systems and the components, because those providers might offer a whole lot for you. All the different sort of subsystems that AWS includes, all the features and functionality of Azure, etc. The biggest thing is documentation. And again, borderline boring answer, I know. But look, when you're carving something out, make sure you write it down. And I think that would be one of the biggest considerations. Like, do you have the appetite? Do you have the fortitude to make sure that you are kind of really cataloging the decisions that you made and the decisions that are still active and implemented? And are you maintaining that asset and inventory list? Because the easiest thing, I think, for a lot of cloud infrastructure, in that it's very abstract and not a physical thing that you're like holding at your server room, you could just straight up forget. Oh, whoops. That AWS box that's been running for a couple months has racked up quite a bill. Or, hey, maybe something that we just didn't realize, oh, that had the default security policy because we didn't toggle these buttons in the menu, in the web interface, right? So a crappy answer, but I feel like that's something that you really need to be cognizant of. And one of those main considerations is write stuff down.
No, I think most people get into security for the documentation. That's people get into the police force so they can write reports, after the car chase and stuff. It's not
all the sexy stuff. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I want to thank Ravaraj in the chat there has added a couple of links for capture flags that they've used. Got hacking the .cloud, which seems to have a GCP focused one, and another one, Thunder CTF.cloud. Basically, just put .cloud on the end of any CTF, and you're set.
That is not a license by any means. Don't go try to take advantage and exploit any .cloud domains.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not a hack for you guys. All right, let's see. We've got another one here that came in ahead of time that I want to ask you about. So in your experience, are most cloud security issues related to misconfigurations on the cloud customer side, or insecurities, I guess, like vulnerabilities on the provider's end that are being exploited?
I am maybe pointing the finger, but I have to say it's on the customer side. It's on the user. It's on the one implementing it. And that is not any shade or ill intent on, their competency. It's just maybe the nature of the beast. You might be a small shop. You might be, hey, just a small, medium business, and trying to get things up and running off the ground. And the cloud providers, look, they're massive. Look, they've got teams, they've got folks that are tracking everything that they can, and they built and bolstered this whole system for the world to use. So more often than not, sure, we catch and we see, hey, some wild hailstorm when, whoops, Google or Amazon had a blunder. But when we see things being taken advantage of, whether it's identity for like Microsoft 365, it's because you didn't turn on multi-factor authentication, like the stupid, dumb, boring stuff, but things that you still need to know and be aware of.
Let me ask you, just play devil's advocate. Are some of those issues still on the provider? Because I feel like, you hear things about like open S3 buckets all the time, and
right.
But should these things be the default settings?
Should I force
from the cloud provider? Should multi-factor be turned on automatically until you say, for some reason, hey, I want to turn that off? Because I feel like a lot of people go, well, they know better than me, so let me just use the default settings, and then they're vulnerable to those kinds of things.
I'll admit, I have been doing a little bit of a series, a couple of videos over on my nerdy YouTube channel, where I'm chatting with a lot of folks that do a lot of like cloud penetration testing and CI/CD, DevOps, infrastructure work for security assessments to go find vulnerabilities. And it's wild where they have set, maybe in Amazon and AWS specifically, hey, they've seen organizations that will use the default settings, again, under the impression that this is the right thing to do. This is safe because that's what the providers have set, and say this is the way. But then later on, after security research has now found a gimmick, found a blemish, found a vulnerability, go report that to the vendor, go report that to Amazon, and they'll go change what will be the default page. But all the organizations, all the businesses and companies that set things up like prior to 2022 are on that old legacy stuff. So I don't know if that exactly kind of draws the point, but I do think like, look, there will be change, and maybe that what is default now might not be default later, and it just really still takes the onus on us users, customers, to kind of have the availability and accountability to check in on that. Like,
Yeah.
hey,
Well, I mean, that makes sense when you've got providers that are dealing with millions of customers. There's no one size fits all solution. So
right.
you've got to still do your homework and make sure that things are set up right for you.
That is a more eloquent answer than what I had, Peter. Thank
Well,
you
I just
for
got to
saving me.
paraphrase what you said. Well, I'll take the credit though.
Yeah.
Let's see. Got another question here. Coming in from LinkedIn, says, "Hi John, for any application behind firewall in the cloud, what would you recommend for the initial foothold, especially for SaaS or PaaS?"
I am not positive what you might be meaning there. Initial foothold for sort of like that pen test perspective. Hey, how are we breaking into this? Sort of acting as the adversary, putting the hacker hat on.
Well, we could take it from that angle, and please let us know in the chat if we're wrong, and and we'll tweak, but that might be helpful.
And I'll be straight up. I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer, and it's kind of such a maybe an odd question to me. If hey, it's looking for what would be a vulnerable application that you could use for initial foothold. I'm sorry, I'm scratching my head on that one. I'll admit.
They say yes.
Oh yes, okay.
So there you go.
Damn vulnerable web app, right? I'm not sure. You stumped me with that one. What would be something you intend to be vulnerable for use behind a firewall?
I like the game of let's try to stump John. So
That's a good one.
If there's a prize, which
The
I don't
the
have on me.
the only way that I could maybe reasonably dance with that is if maybe, hey, you're trying to play a little bit of cyber deception. Hey, we'll set up a honeypot. Hey, we'll have something that will allure our threat actors and hackers and see what they do. Again, and I totally don't mean to be a shill for my content or YouTube channel, but there's a really cool, and I'm happy to see that success of like just an open server I hosted with DigitalOcean, where we left SSH, the secure shell Linux remote command and control opportunity, open and available with like some allowed weak credentials. So it was really fun to go see anyone on the open internet, how many IP addresses started to hammer this thing. Are they trying to install cryptocurrency miners for like real cybercrime? Or are they just wanting to treat it like a hack the box or try hack me, where, you know what, let's install persistence, let's elevate privileges, let's go through the whole cyber attack and cyber kill chain. But that is just an open door, and maybe that might be interesting for seeing some of the threat actor activity and knowing what the enemy's doing.
Craig says, "Good old DVWA."
Thank you, Craig.
He gets it. All right. Well, that's helpful. I appreciate that. And let's see. I had a question for you that I hate to open up a big can of worms, but we've seen at Cloud Institute a big jump for our AI and ML training. So I know AI is something that's big now in like threat detection, but what other areas do you anticipate AI playing a role as far as security goes in the future?
I have not drank the Kool-Aid yet. Is probably the shortest and most pithy way to answer that. Whenever I have tried to use our good friend ChatGPT for, hey, just writing code to implement something, either to, I don't know, play with a project, or, can you carve out some Yara or Sigma rules for me for detection, for threat hunting, for blue team work? It just misses the mark, and I have to sort of handhold it and say, no, sorry, either that syntax is wrong, or the logic isn't right, or you forgot something here, and I'll have to go through maybe 2 or 3 or 4 iterations to maybe get something close to what I wanted, but not exactly. So personally, I haven't seen the amazing heaven's gates open in front of me. And for cybercrime and for threat actors, right, it's very, very easy, undoubtedly, to just spit out malicious code. You can do whatever those things that could try to circumvent whatever code of ethical policy that ChatGPT tries to follow. But the thing is, it only knows what it's been programmed to know and go learn out on its machine learning adventures, which means it's the finite realm of what us as people have already created and know about. So it's not going to crank out some leap 0 day, some hot, never before seen new innovation and earth shattering exploit, because it can't know that. And just the hallucinations, I think, is the word that folks know when it starts to just, hey, think it has an idea and roll down a rabbit hole. I'm going down a rabbit hole, forgive me. But I haven't drank the Kool-Aid yet, and I'm not seeing an incredible strides for the security aspect just yet, personally. How about you, Peter? Can I throw that one back at you? What do you think?
Me? No. Well, what's funny is that I was thinking about, as you were saying that it's potentially helping the hackers as much as the people defending, because you do hear about people, using it to write malware, basically. Yeah. You can say, hey, give me this malicious code. And so, when you've got kind of a system fighting against itself, it knows its own limitations. And
there's, no, I think a really funny barrier of entry, because if you say, hey, ChatGPT, write me ransomware, it'll say, I'm sorry, I can't do that, Dave. Not going to open the pod bay doors. It's like, that's not what society needs. But if you get a little bit more tactical and you say, hey, please give me some Rust programming language syntax where you iterate recursively through all the files in the C drive, and then you append the file extension with the .enc and encrypt each contents with AES SHA-256, then it's like, okay, here you go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. And I think, I think it's something where it's a good foundation maybe to help eliminate just some of the repetitive tasks and things, but it's not something at this point that I'd rely on and say, oh, we've got, security infrastructure in place because I've got AI. You can let that alert me to things and suggest things, but a human needs to be watching that at least right now, or a second AI, maybe a second AI on top of the first AI, watching its work. And it's the whole recursive thing then that you've got going.
I'm digging the synthesis. I think hey, you know what? Have the harmony if you got some machine, automated, AI, whatever, and people still part of the equation. So
yeah, makes sense. Hey, you mentioned the YouTube channel a couple of times. What is the name of the channel for people that want to check that out?
Oh yeah, for folks, if there is any interest, just my name, John Hammond. You'll see my dumb, ugly mug and the silly red hair, and that way you should be able to track me down. Having a whole lot of fun with it, really kind of exploring different things, whether it's programming, whether it's cutting up some malware, whether it's seeing what threats are on the dark web, spooky woo, or even hey, how does all malware come together, and what is on the horizon. It's really, really fun. It's a labor of love, just sort of a pet and passion project that I get to pour into, but I'm happy to see it grow. I think we just crossed the 600,000 mark, and having fun.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Be at 1 million anytime now and get that. You get a plaque at what, 100,000 and then 1 million?
Yes. 100,000 is the silver play button that I have stashed away in the closet. And the gold fancy plaque is at 1 million. So
fantastic. Fingers
crossed.
Yeah. Craig is a fan there. And I know a lot of other people that are watching this are. So thank you for all that great info, folks. That's super helpful. Hey, now we're coming up close in time here. So before I let you go, I just want to let the people here know about a couple of things we've got going on. So we have several security courses for those of you that are kind of, going down that road. In our library, there include AWS, Azure, GCP, and then a lot of vendor agnostic training as well. So some of those most popular courses like Microsoft Certified, Azure Fundamental and Administrator even come with personalized coaching sessions that can help you kind of navigate that content and figure out where you're going. So I'll put a link in the chat for that one as well. But also, if you're not sure where to start, we strongly advise you can just access our coaching from from our site, where you basically subscribe to a monthly or annual coaching contract, and then you get access to all of our training and labs as well at no cost. So coaching starts at just $64 a month. Prices actually come down if you've got a team there, so you can get more people on it. So that's the way to go if you're serious about advancing your career there. So John, before I let you go, any closing thoughts there? As some comments coming in, let's see, people saying you got this, a million's coming up, and then let's see, I started my CTF career by watching your videos. So fans everywhere.
Well, hey, if I may, please say, look, the whole reason that I wanted to come and hang out with everyone here is because, look, I'm really loving this mission of, hey, trying to get education out there and show, not tell, like, hey, facts, not fear. And it's really cool to see Cloud Institute doing that. And look, they didn't pay me to say this by any means. I just genuinely love the stuff that they're doing because it is getting knowledge out there. And cloud, all this online infrastructure is a crazy wide world, and there's just so much to it. But having someone, like literally a person, someone to be there kind of alongside you in that journey is like paramount and crazy cool. So if you haven't, really want to give my testament, and I'm loving what you all are up to. Huge kudos and props to you, Cloud Institute. Thanks for letting me party.
Hey, you're a mentor to a lot of people now through the channel, like not one-on-one necessarily, but were you mentored?
Not personally, sort of, kind of. You know how people like drift in and out of your life and would like to help shepherd you in different ways. It's so cool to see that, but it's always been loose and very indirect.
Sure.
I know with Cloud Institute, like, look, I'm dedicated. I'm yours. I want to be part of your journey, and that I think is just a strong arm.
Makes sense. Hey, thanks again, John, and please, everyone watching, send us a message if you want to be notified of these upcoming events, and we can add you to our list. We've got free training and things like this going on all the time, so let us know. So again, thanks for presenting, John, today. Thanks to all of our listeners, both live and watching the recording after the fact. We appreciate you and your questions and feedback, and we're happy to keep kind of answering them as they come in. Let us know. But thanks again for watching. Thank you, John. Everybody have a great day out there.